Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm Tammy Stacklehouse, fibromyalgia coach, author, and founder of the International Fibromyalgia Coaching Institute. The goal of this podcast is to empower you with access to the dream team of experts and coaches I've discovered are key to living the fibro life you love. From the comfort of your own home, and maybe even your pajamas, I'll help you take back control of your life and health. To help out with fibro fog, I always include full show notes and additional resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com. Welcome to the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tammy Stacklehouse, and this is episode 176. If you're listening to this in mid-January, there's a good chance the new year energy has already worn off, and what's left is pressure, fatigue, and that familiar feeling of falling behind before the year has even really begun. Today's episode offers a different approach. I'm joined by Dr. Robin Pfaff, a certified fibromyalgia coach who has lived with fibro for nearly 30 years. We'll talk about why traditional New Year's resolutions often activate the stress response for people with fibromyalgia and why that pressure can lead straight into flares and burnout. Instead, we'll explore what a compassionate New Year looks like. Robin will share a simple mindful self-compassion framework along with gentle, practical tools you can use in just a minute or two. You don't need a new you this year, just a kinder, gentler relationship with yourself. Now, before we dive in, I want to properly introduce today's guest. Dr. Robin Pfaff is a national board-certified health and wellness coach, a certified fibromyalgia coach, and the author of Living Your Best Life with Fibromyalgia, a compassionate approach to reclaiming your health and reimagining your purpose. After more than 25 years as a licensed psychotherapist, Robin retooled her career to focus specifically on helping professional women with fibromyalgia, ages 50 or better, create lives that support healing, purpose, and self-compassion. She has a special expertise in helping women navigate the emotional and nervous system impacts of fibromyalgia, including the pressure, self-criticism, and overwhelm that so often come with chronic illness. Robin has been a guest on the Fibromyalgia Podcast many times, and she's one of those that our community really knows and trusts deeply. We'll have links in today's show notes where you can explore her other podcast appearances, learn more about her work, and get a copy of her book. You can find all of those resources at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/176. And be sure to stay on after our conversation for some additional resources and our listener shout out. As always, I do want to remind you that the information we include on this podcast is never meant to be considered medical advice, and it is definitely not intended to replace consulting with a qualified physician or mental health provider. Now, here is my conversation with Dr. Robin Pfaff. Hi, Robin. Thank you so much for joining me today.
Hi, Tammy. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So as I said in the introduction, this isn't your first time on the podcast.
No. I'm an old timer by now.
Yes. In fact, I think you might be like my most frequent guest, maybe. So why you for this topic? I'd like to actually start there. This idea of a compassionate new year, a gentle beginning. I mean, I know you pretty well. You were immediately the person that I thought of. But why don't you share with our audience a little bit why this approach, why all this matters to you, and why you love it?
Yeah, I do love it. Teaching mindful self-compassion strategies to my fibromyalgia coaching clients is one of the highlights of the work that I do. And the reason I think you thought of me for the new year is because New Year's resolutions are actually damaging to people with chronic illness. The pressure to be a new you in the new year actually activates the threat system in our nervous system. It actually activates our stress response, which, as many of us are familiar with, that's that fight or flight or freeze or fawn trauma reaction to stress. And so many of us with fibro, we go into the new year already exhausted from the long holiday season. And then we're supposed to have all these goals and turn over a new leaf. And oh my goodness, people feel like they failed before they've even started.
That's so true.
That's where mindful self-compassion comes in and says, whoa, Nellie, let's slow this way, way down and take another look at what having a successful new year would actually look like for a person who's dealing with fibro.
Yes, yes, I agree with that 100%. If you're listening and you heard our last episode, it was about heart rate variability with Dr. Andrew Holman, and he talks about this overactive fight or flight and how important it is for us to calm that down with fibromyalgia, that it's really critical. So if you haven't heard that episode, just go back one. But the other thing that I think is really important to really think about too is this fact that January is the middle of winter. From a natural perspective, that's the season where we are hibernating. I mean, just look out your window. So that also adds this extra level of why it feels like we have to push through so hard, because we're literally fighting nature too.
That's right. That's right. And what mindful self-compassion offers is a proven evidence-based way to calm that nervous system reaction, to help us be more steady emotionally, and it gives us hope. And all of those things are in short supply. So it makes sense to think about what would it look like to have a gentle, compassionate new year.
Yes, yes. Now, we are not saying don't set goals, don't try to improve yourself, all of those things. We just want to go about it in a gentle way. And our Starting Small podcast episode and Kim's article on the Fibro Compass about setting wellness goals in the new year, it is this entire compassionate, gentle approach. But we also need to be compassionate and gentle inside our heads. And I think that's really where we're going today.
That's right. That's right. So maybe this is a good time to review the 3 pillars of mindful self-compassion, which I've talked about with you before so many times. And I also talk about it in my book, Living Your Best Life with Fibromyalgia. And it starts with mindfulness, which we're generally familiar with. And it means just paying attention to what is actually going on in your body in that moment. And instead of pushing ourselves to do more and more, we can ask the question, what is my energy like today? We start with awareness, paying attention to what is actually going on in our body. So the second pillar is called our common humanity. And this is referring to the fact that we're all human beings, and human beings are not perfect, and we all struggle in some way. Yes, our struggles are different, but every struggle deserves compassion. And it helps to remember that millions of people worldwide find January very challenging. In fact, weren't you just saying that there's a holiday? Tell me what you were telling me earlier.
Yes. So this episode is coming out on January 13th. And it just so happens that January 17th, this Saturday, is National Ditch Your New Year's Resolutions Day. And you might have also heard about Blue Monday, not the song. Blue Monday is like the most depressing day of the year. And it kind of falls along with all of this, where we'll assume healthy people for a moment here, not fibro people, but New Year's Day, we're like, okay, awesome. I'm going to do all the things. Like, I'm going to transform overnight into like this perfect human being. And then a couple of weeks in, we realize that we actually can't do that.
No, No, we can't. So to go back to what I was saying, I was talking about the three pillars of mindful self-compassion. What we were just talking about is our common humanity. Everybody is ready to ditch their New Year's resolutions by mid-January. They just are. And so we have the mindfulness aspect, the common humanity aspect, and then the third, which is maybe so important for fibro folks, is the self-kindness aspect. And this is where we treat ourselves like we would treat a good friend. And I don't know about everybody else, but I am not good at this when I feel like I'm failing at something. And even though I've been working with this material for years and I know how to use it, when I feel like I'm not doing well, I fall back into those old habits of criticizing myself as if that is going to make things better. You know, it might motivate us momentarily to get something done where we push through, but ultimately it backfires. And so we have to practice treating ourselves like we would treat a friend because we already know how to treat a good friend. We just don't know how to apply it to ourselves. So those are the three components: the mindfulness, the common humanity, and self-kindness that make up a mindful self-compassion approach.
Yes, yes. And I think all three of those are just so important in general, no matter who you are,
Mhm.
right? Just being aware in the present moment of what's happening around you, how it's making you feel physically, emotionally, realizing that, everybody else is in this same. I love the idea that we're not necessarily all in the same boat, but we're in the same storm.
Yeah, I like that.
And
Mhm.
then this idea of self kindness, how we treat ourselves. And I always like to say how we talk to ourselves when nobody else is listening. What's happening up here?
Yeah, and so we can learn to practice using those components to kind of assess where we are when we start a day or when we're thinking about this new season or this new month. And we can say, all right, what is going well for me? What's not going well? How am I feeling today? Instead of saying to ourselves, I should have more energy. I should be getting out there more. I should. Instead, we can say, okay, where is my body today? Where am I in this season? And then we can remember we're not alone, our common humanity. Many people struggle at this time of year. And then rather than pushing or criticizing ourselves, we learn to say, what is the most supportive thing I can offer myself right now? And so, if people want to have New Year's resolutions, I would encourage them to think about being rather than doing, or thinking about how can I show myself more kindness in the new year and make your resolutions based on that thought.
Yes, I love that. I had a friend that she told me that for Lent, she was giving up being critical of people. I said, are you including yourself in that?
I hope she was. I hope she was
I don't
for
think she
sure.
was, but I think she did after I said that. She's like, oh, yeah, I forgot that.
Yeah, yeah, we do. We do forget to include ourselves in that.
Yes, yes. Now, there are so many problems with the way that we traditionally approach New Year's resolutions. So let's do a little like compare and contrast. What does traditional New Year approaches look like? And then what would be a more compassionate alternative with this approach?
So people will often have a goal to exercise more in the new year because they know that spending all their time on the couch is not helpful. And so they might sign up for a gym membership and then they go to the gym. And I've heard this from so many clients. They might sign up to work with a personal trainer and it goes okay for the first couple of sessions. And then the repetitive motions, the intensity causes a flare. And then they're back on the couch, recovering from the flare, feeling even worse about themselves, saying things like, what is the matter with me? Why can't I go to the gym or work with a personal trainer and make even just a little bit of progress? And so I know you've talked about this creating stupidly small goals. I like
Yes.
to call them tiny steps or micro practices. And so a fibro friendly, self compassionate goal would be like, okay, I know I need to have more movement in my life, not exercise, because exercise connotes pain and suffering and probably something that, is not attainable necessarily. But movement, the body moves freely when we allow it to. I mean, we can stand up and we can sway gently from side to side. I was telling a coaching client recently, when I go through a doorway, I'll often reach up with my arms and stretch on the top of the door frame or stretch from side to side. It can be so helpful to identify what I like to call these micro practices, which are like 30 to 60 seconds of doing something like, for example, movement that we're talking about now. The reason this works is it bypasses that threat system and it sort of sneaks up on the brain. Our bodies and our brains, it wants to heal. And our body will naturally heal if we can give it the resources and the conditions that allows it to heal. But our culture doesn't support the conditions that allow fibro people to heal because we need to do things really slowly. We need to do things in really, really small pieces. And sometimes that feels like it's ridiculous. Like, how is that going to help? But the brain really likes novelty. It likes being exposed to something new and different. It likes these little 30 to 60-second bursts of doing something different in a positive way. It accesses what's called the neuroplasticity of our brain. It's the ability of our brain to learn something new. And our brains enjoy doing that when we do it in a way that is time limited and accessible to a body that has fluctuating energy and fluctuating pain levels and fluctuating cognitive ability. So that's one of the ways that we can do New Year's resolutions differently in a fibro friendly way.
Absolutely. Absolutely. One of the things I think is so important to remember that is so easy for us to forget is what is the body that I'm living in right now today? Not what I think I used to be or what I think I should be, but like literally right now, today, what is your energy level? What is your pain level? What is your brain fog level? How do you feel today? What does your body need today? And that answer is going to change and may not coincide with the exercise schedule at the gym.
Exactly. Exactly. Maybe you can go to the gym and sit in their hot tub and sit in their sauna. Or maybe you don't even go to the gym at all. You just do your routines at home. And it can be helpful to think about creating a kinder, gentler new year for yourself and then evaluate how you feel. Because we're not asking people to just trust us on this. We're asking and suggesting that people experiment. I mean, that's something that I learned from you, that everything we do in terms of getting better from fibromyalgia is an experiment. We try something, we see the results, we evaluate, and then we make another goal or small, tiny practice based on what we've discovered.
That's right. That's right. Because you don't know. You don't know how you're going to respond, especially if it's something you haven't done since your fibromyalgia diagnosis, or if your body has changed for other reasons. Like you just don't know. And so we do need to experiment. And I think the most freeing thing about this idea of really all of life being a science experiment is that there's also no failure. Whether it does what you think it's going to do, or you learn that that wasn't the right thing, the goal has been met, and that was to have new information.
That's right. That's right. So it's all good. Whether the event or the practice you're trying is successful or not, you always gain information. And the brain enjoys that as well, because the brain likes to think about things and analyze things. And something that's important to remember with fibromyalgia is that doing more and more and more is actually counterproductive. One of my mantras is less is more, because when we can activate our brain's healing properties, our body's healing properties, then we can sustain that in a way that's gentle and kind. And we can avoid being in that push crash cycle all the time.
Yes. That's like the definition of January as a big push crash, I think, for most people.
Yeah. So I want to share with you that Dr. Kristen Neff, who's the founder of Mindful Self-Compassion, created what she calls a self-compassion break. And I've told you about this before, but it was so meaningful to me. I was first introduced to it in a continuing education class I attended on wellness. I learned about this mantra, and then the following week, I'm bending down in front of this very bookcase, and I was upset about something, and the mantra came into my head just sort of spontaneously, and I knew it was really important. And so it goes like this, and I have adapted this self-compassion break for the new year. And the first sentence goes like this: this is a moment of suffering, or this is a moment of difficulty. And we can say, the new year is a challenging time for me. Then the next sentence is, but I'm not alone in feeling this way. The new year is challenging for a lot of people. And then I say, instead of setting unrealistic goals, may I be kind to myself this year. So, just to condense, and you can practice saying this to yourself: this is a moment of suffering in the new year, but I'm not alone in feeling this way. The new year is hard for lots of people. May I be kind to myself in this moment and in this year.
I love that. I love that. I love your idea of like, memorize this, like have it on the tip of your brain, so to speak.
Yeah, and you can put it on a Post-it note or a little file card, or have it someplace in your notes on your phone so it's easy to find. You can even print it out on an 8x10, make a little poster of it. But it really, really makes a difference. I do what I call a mini mindful self-compassion retreat with all of the women that I work with. And Tammy, it's always a game changer. They come back and they say, I'm using these strategies, I'm seeing the impact on my life right away. So I can feel confident in recommending this to anyone who wants to have a gentler, kinder new year.
Yes, yes, I agree so much. Now, I know that you also have a lot of other practical tools that people can use to help tap into that mindful self compassion. Do you want to share some of those?
Yeah, so I rely on Dr. Kristen Neff's Mindful Self-Compassion workbook. And one of my favorite activities for clients is to have them write a self-compassionate letter to themselves. That's really powerful. There's an exercise called Soften, Soothe, Allow that we've talked about on here before. And that's one that the women I work with tell me is really valuable. I'll just review that real quickly. You notice a place in your body that may be tense, and then you repeat this mantra: soften, soften, soothe, soothe, allow, allow. And you can place your hands whatever the area is that is tense. And almost instantaneously, the shoulders relax, the breathing deepens. The body says, okay, I'm a little less tense, I'm in a little less pain, I'm a little more focused. And the research is supporting the value of these micro practices, that it only takes a moment or two a day to create meaningful, measurable differences in well being. with the caveat that it needs to be consistent. That's what recent research has found, that if people are consistently for a few moments a day offering themselves self-compassion, then they can see measurable differences. So those are a few examples.
Yes. And I know you've talked before about the fact that we're not talking about like an hour of meditation or anything like that. Like we are literally talking just a couple of minutes.
That's right. Because I know, especially when I was dealing with severe low back pain, which fortunately has been resolved through some treatment, I couldn't sit and meditate for anything. What happened to me was it would actually amplify the pain in my body and make it worse. Now, I can do walking meditation or I can do meditation when I'm in water, but just to sit with my eyes closed, with my body in pain, it wasn't something that I could do. But a moment here and there, yes, I can do that. Almost anyone can do that.
And I think too, those small moments, like they found this with exercise, and I'm sure that this is exactly the same, that a couple minutes in the morning and a couple minutes at night is actually more effective than like 10 minutes all at once.
That's right. That's right. That's what the research is showing. And so what we're talking about is we're talking about replacing pressure with possibility. And possibility seems wide open, whereas pressure closes us down and makes us tense. And so there's three words that I want to offer to our listeners today, and that's pacing, presence, and permission. And so as you're thinking about your new year, think about how you can actually slow things down. A woman I'm currently working with had plans to travel for the winter to go be with friends and family in the south of the United States where it's warmer during the winter. But she and her husband were planning to drive a long distance, and they just realized that they just were not up to that drive. So she was feeling good about that decision, but an unexpected benefit of making that choice turned out that she had cleared her schedule at home for a couple of months because she planned to be gone. And then she stayed home and she had like 2 months where her calendar was basically free of all these self-care appointments and doctor's appointments and social things and classes she was taking and even teaching. And she said it was such a relief to have a free schedule. And so we've been really paying attention to how her body feels with less on the calendar, and her body feels a lot better. So
Yes.
even good things like massage and physical therapy and all the things that we do to take care of our body, sometimes we can even overschedule those. And then that makes me want to circle back to what I said earlier. Less often is more for the body.
Yes, yes, especially if there's any sort of drive to get there or anything like that. I mean, living here in Seattle, there was some doctors I was going to, it was like an hour each way.
Yeah. Yeah, that's what this woman I was working with said as well. She'd have to drive 45 minutes or an hour, have the treatment, which was lovely, and then the drive back completely undid the treatment.
That's right. That's right. And I think sometimes like we're just doing the thing, right? So we just do the next thing and we don't have that time or that moment to step back and look at the whole picture and think, is this actually serving me this way?
That's right. And she said years ago she was practically bedridden and she had to do lots and lots and lots of treatment to get to an equilibrium. And so sometimes we absolutely do have to do that kind of intensity to figure out what is going to help and what's not going to help. But then down the road, she had gotten into this routine that she wasn't really reflecting on anymore. And it had been years that she had been in this routine. And so it was this change in her schedule that allowed her to, I like to call it zooming out, like you said, to look at the big picture and then to give herself permission to evaluate. And so she's decided that she's going to talk to various practitioners about cutting back on some sessions and see how she does, with the caveat that she can always increase her treatments if she needs to. But sometimes we forget to reflect on where we're at. And that's actually where coaching, fibromyalgia coaching, can be really helpful because you have a sounding board with a coach like myself and yourself and our other fibromyalgia coaches who can act as a mirror to reflect back. This is what I'm hearing you saying. Is this still working for you or not?
That's right. That's exactly right. I was thinking the exact same thing while you were talking. I'm like, yeah, I do that with my clients a lot, is just sort of, okay, let's take a step back. Let's evaluate this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Right. I'm thinking of another woman I'm working with that, was gung-ho and working with a functional medicine practitioner, which is something we always recommend our fibromyalgia clients do. But her particular practitioner had her making a lot of changes all at once and was having her take a whole bunch of supplements all at once. It was too much for her sensitive body. And I said, well, the lesson to be learned here is that fibro bodies need to take things more slowly because we're already very sensitive, and making a lot of changes in a short amount of time is not productive. It's not helpful. But it wasn't until she was able to talk it through with me that she was able to see what was going on, because previously she'd been blaming herself for not seeing improvement and for actually feeling worse. So it helps to have someone to brainstorm with, to have a sounding board. And, if you can find that in a friend or a healthcare practitioner, that's great. But this is where fibromyalgia coaching really has an important role to play in the treatment and dealing with fibromyalgia and helping people feel better.
Absolutely. And there was one little thing that you said in there that also is something really important about working with someone who actually specializes in fibromyalgia, like we do. When you said fibro bodies need to take it slow, there are a lot of practitioners out there. There are a lot of coaches out there. There are just a lot of people out there who know a lot of healthy things for your regular average body, right? But
That's
those
right.
things sometimes can actually be harmful for fibro bodies. So you need that fibro expertise coming in along with the other expertise to sort of translate it all and say, okay, this is what we need to do for fibromyalgia. Sure, that's good. We'll implement that, but we need to do it slower. We need to do it piece by piece. Yeah.
That's right. That's right. That's right. And all of our fibro coaches have fibromyalgia themselves, and or they have a family member that has fibromyalgia. And so that peer support is a really unique feature of fibromyalgia coaching, because, we can say, hey, when you are telling me about that eruption of IBS that almost ruined your vacation, I can say, oh, well, I've been there too. And I know how embarrassing and frustrating that is. And you can get on the other side of it. So it really helps to then zoom in on the nitty gritty, granular things that are sometimes hard to talk about out loud because they're kind of embarrassing and
Right.
hard to talk about. But you can talk about that with your fibro coach because she really understands.
We've been there. So true. So true. That I was just thinking while you were talking that that's sort of reinforcing that common humanity. And for you listening, you may never have talked to somebody who also has fibromyalgia, who actually does understand. And so you may feel very alone, but we're here.
Yeah, that's right. There are a lot of us. And what's fun about talking to a fibro coach is that we're not stuck. We are, experimenting, we're trying things. It's very dynamic, it's very fun. Yes, we cry, but we also do a lot of laughter together because Sometimes dealing with fibromyalgia is kind of ridiculous because it's so complicated and it's hard to understand. But the reason is it's because it's a central nervous system disorder, and our nerves go through every organ in our body. And so when you have that understanding, it starts to make all of the different weird symptoms start to make sense. And when things start to make sense, your body can start to calm down, and you don't have to be in that stressful alarm, fight, flight, freeze mode. You can be in a place of calm and hopefulness, and that's the place where you can begin to heal.
Mm-hmm. Yes. Yes. And I was thinking, like, through all of our conversation today, whether it's that self-compassion break or the, what is it, soften, soothe, allow, it's really all about creating an environment of safety.
That's exactly right. That's exactly right. And when we feel safe in our body, then we can be more creative and we can make better choices and we can listen more to what our body needs. And that's another exercise that we do in mindful self-compassion is we try to identify that wise, kind voice within ourselves. For some people, it's like a wise grandmother. A woman I'm currently working with, it has been like a soulmate dog that she had that was a kind and loyal companion for many, many years. We can access that deep place of inner wisdom. And that reminds me of some micro practices that I wanted to share with our listeners today. I already mentioned the 30 to 60 seconds of movement, but a couple of other micro practices you can try would be to practice micro joys. And this would be noticing something beautiful or listening to something beautiful for just a moment or two. Also, you could create a tiny altar for spiritual support. I'm holding a little statue of Saint Teresa of Avila that I keep in my office for spiritual support. Teresa of Avila, I'm not sure if everyone is aware, had a lot of physical health problems. She spent a lot of her adulthood in bed with all kinds of symptoms, which sound really similar to fibromyalgia in some aspects. And so you can create a tiny altar of objects like this. I have a stone from the ocean side and some sticks from the beach. And I have this in my office, and you can just hold it in your hand. This little statue is heavy, it's solid metal, and it feels really good. And she represents depth and deep connection to God for me. So this is something that I can do to nurture myself that only takes a couple of moments. So you can find these practices. And if you want to make a list of New Year's resolutions, make a list of all these simple micro practices, tiny steps that you can take to nurture and be kind to yourself in the new year.
Yes, I love that. One of the things I talk about often is I truly feel like God sent my cats to remind me to take breaks. So anytime Finn or Maisie comes around, if I can, I take a minute and I just love on them, enjoy them,
Yes,
get that infusion of joy.
that's right. That's right. And what it does, those practices calm the cortisol in our bodies. It activates the calming response in our system. And so we create a positive feedback loop where, for a few moments, we feel calmer, we can breathe more deeply, we feel a little hopefulness, and then we can build on that small step by small step. And I want to share with you some recent results from some clients that I've been working with, and they gave me permission to share. I'm not going to share details about them, but these are women who they've been high achievers in the fields of healthcare and education and ministry and arts administration. Several of them are still working in their fields, And they've recently completed my foundational 5-month, 15-session coaching program with me. The women that we work with take the FIQR, which is the Fibromyalgia Impact Questionnaire revised. We do that as a pre-test, post-test type of experience for our clients. So we have them take it at the beginning of coaching and they get a score, which is their baseline. And then we have them take it again as they're finishing up their coaching. And I know you've talked about this a lot because we do it in the training programs that we work with you as well. And so I have my clients do this. And one of them had a 30% reduction in symptoms, another had a 40%, and another had a 60%. And while 30% may not sound like a lot, it actually means fewer flares, less pain, more functioning. The same with 40%. And when you're getting up to 60%, you're actually seeing life altering change. And eventually, some folks, I know you've experienced this, can actually achieve a remission of their symptoms. I haven't yet, but I have been able to say that since I received effective treatment for my severe low back pain, which was caused by an inflammation of my SI joint, when that pain was reduced by 90%, my fibromyalgia symptoms went down by 90%. So many of us with fibromyalgia are not only dealing with fibro, but we're dealing with other chronic illnesses as well. And some of those other issues can be treated effectively. Not everything is fibro.
Yes.
And we also help people figure that out in the course of fibromyalgia coaching. I mean, I've had the opportunity to say on more than one occasion to women I'm working with, I'm not sure that that is actually fibromyalgia. Let's, have you check with your healthcare provider. So there's a lot of hope to be had in dealing with this condition. We're understanding more and more about it every day. In the background, there are researchers that are doing really good work. There are new treatments in development and coming down the pike. There's lots of reason to be hopeful in the new year.
Yes. Yes. 100% agree. And you can help it all along by being a little bit more kind and compassionate to yourself. Create that environment of safety in your own body. Even if maybe the rest of the world doesn't feel safe, you can feel safe in your own mind and your
That's right.
body, right? Yeah. So, as we wrap up, Robin, what words of wisdom do you have? Like, if we could just sort of sum this up for folks, people who are, here we are on the 13th of January and the whole world around us is going crazy.
I use this expression, take yourself by the hand and sit down in a quiet place in your home and close your eyes. Pray if that makes sense to you. And just tune into your body and say, body, what do you need right now? Then take one small, tiny action to honor whatever your body says. And maybe it means that you just stay seated there for a few moments and rest your eyes. Maybe it means that you go into the kitchen and make yourself a cup of herbal tea. Maybe it means that you go stand outside if the weather permits, or look out your window if the weather doesn't permit, and just, notice the environment and nature. Maybe it means you sit down with an object from your tiny altar. Maybe it means you take a moment to pet your cat. Pay attention to what your body is telling you, and then treat yourself with kindness.
Yes, I agree. I love that. I've used this for many, many years. What do I need right now? And I tell you what, folks, more often than not, the answer is essentially a snack and a nap. But
Right.
it's so easy to just dismiss that, like, oh, that's silly.
I know. But remember, less is more.
That's right.
Tiny gets us. It's like what you were saying in that recent podcast. It's the tortoise that wins the race. It's that turtle just do, 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 just keep going, just keep going. Slow but steady. That's what makes the difference.
That's right. That's right. Well, thank you so much for being here, Robin. And for you listening, oh, you're so welcome. For you listening, make sure you hang on. I will give you a few more resources for you, but make sure you go to today's show notes. It's fibromyalgiapodcast.com/176. We'll have a link where you can get a copy of Robin's book. We'll have a link where you can connect with her if you want to schedule a consultation with Robin. If she feels like your person, this is a perfect time to do that at the beginning of the year, where we can help you set good goals. And, if you like the idea, but Robin isn't your person, that's cool too. We got people all over the world.
Right. We have lots of coaches to choose from.
That's right. That's right. All right. Thanks again, Robin. And like I said, just hang on. We'll have a few more resources in just a second. And that wraps up my conversation with Dr. Robin Pfaff, National Board Certified Health and Wellness Coach, Certified Fibromyalgia Coach, and author of Living Your Best Life with Fibromyalgia. If this episode resonated with you, I really encourage you to spend some time with the ideas we talked about today. This concept of a compassionate new year, replacing pressure with possibility, can be incredibly powerful, especially when you're living with fibromyalgia. As we discussed, traditional New Year's resolutions often activate the stress response and push us straight into that push-crash cycle that we all know and don't love. What Robin shared instead, mindful self-compassion and simple nervous system supporting micro practices, gives you another option, one that actually works with your body instead of against it. As I mentioned earlier, I have included links in today's show notes to Robin's book, her coaching work, and her past appearances here on the Fibromyalgia podcast. She's been a guest many times over the years, and her episodes consistently go deeper into topics like self-compassion, self-kindness, and post-traumatic growth. You'll also find links to additional resources to support what we talked about today, including recent episodes and articles on the Fibro Compass, our online blog and digital magazine. These cover everything from fibro-friendly ways to reflect on the previous year to setting intentions for the new year, starting small, and more. You can find all of that at fibromyalgiapodcast.com/176. And now, before I wrap up, it is time for this week's listener shout out. This one goes out to Dr. Desiree Cassell of Pelvic Floor, Core, and More. She was our guest in episode 162, where we talked about pelvic floor physical therapy. My shout out today is for a photo she shared on Instagram. Dr. Desiree has helped us secure a governor's proclamation for the state of New Mexico, officially declaring May as Fibromyalgia Awareness Month in 2026, which is awesome. Thank you so much for your help with that, Dr. Desiree. That was a state we were missing. If you would like to help us with a proclamation in your state, just send me a message through our website or on social media. Our mission is to paint the entire country purple, and there are a few states we could actually use a little help with. To learn more about this effort, you can check out episode 159, Official Proclamations for Fibromyalgia Awareness. We will also have a link to that episode and an article about the project in today's show notes, along with Dr. Desiree's episode, if you would like to learn more about her work. As we wrap up, I want to remind you of this. Healing with fibromyalgia is not about doing more, about pushing harder, or becoming a whole new you. It's about learning how to listen to your body, about creating safety in your nervous system, and building change slowly with kindness and compassion. If you'd like more support with that, whether it's through this podcast, the Fibro Compass, our YouTube channel, or working one-on-one with a coach, you'll find all of those options at fibromyalgiapodcast.com under the resources menu. And if you're thinking about working with a coach, especially at the beginning of the year, I'd recommend scheduling sooner rather than later. Our coaches do tend to fill up quickly this time of year, and having someone walk alongside you can make this process feel a whole lot less overwhelming. You can visit findafibrocoach.com to explore your options. Thank you so much for being here with me today. Take good care of yourself, be kind and compassionate to yourself, and I will see you back here next time. And that wraps up another episode of the Fibromyalgia Podcast. I'm your coach, Tammy Stacklehouse. For daily doses of hope, inspiration, and practical advice, come hang out with me on Facebook. Visit facebook.com/fibrocoach to find my personal coaching page and connect with me directly. To find the show notes, additional resources, or to schedule a consultation with me or one of my coaches, visit fibromyalgiapodcast.com.